We appreciate y'all being here today. My co-chair, Bob Manning, is not going to be with us today. His wife, Linda, had an unfortunate situation. Her mother passed away, I don't know if it was last week or maybe the week before, but he's taken her for some much needed R&R to New Mexico, and I'm not sure when they'll be back, but we wish I've extended to him our collective condolences, and he will be back with us as soon as he can find his way back. We have had some committee members make some real progress, and so Cecilio or Representative Ampo has some stuff to present to us. So I think we've got a lot of ground to cover today. The minutes of August 17th, Erica got those to me late last week. I haven't had a chance to review those, but I will, and send those out for the next meeting, which will be a week from today. So we're on an off schedule here, but we will consider those at the subsequent meeting on September 7th. Next item is the first opportunity for public comment. We have two opportunities for public comment. Any public commenters would like to say anything? Recognize Tobin Miles over here, representing city manager from the city of Fair Oaks, one of our sponsoring agencies. Okay, no public comment. All right, next up is Cecilio Martinez, the famous Cecilio Martinez from Alamo area.
That's infamous.
Infamous, okay.
Let's get straight.
We've talked a lot about crowdsourced data organization.
Right.
And Cecilio's met with the projects committee, and I think he's been through this once before with them. So this is basically the same presentation, and what he presents here isn't the final product, but it is, the Northern is taking what Cecilio's got, and she will make a presentation after him, so we can get this down to where lay people can understand this, and even us technical guys might be able to understand it.
Okay, thanks for that introduction. Once again, my name is Cecilio Martinez. I am the GIS manager for the Alamo area MPO. And what I'll be doing today is giving a presentation that I gave to the subcommittee, and I'll be giving it to this committee here. We're going to be going over the crowdsourced information. A while back, there was a portal that was developed by this committee and also the MPO in regards to trying to collect information about automotive ideas, concerns, and also biped transit, and also collecting sensitive information. So looking at karst areas or anything that's sensitive. So here's kind of a screenshot of the application itself. This is the automotive portion. So what citizens were able to do was to come into this area. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. They were able to zoom into their area of interest, and they were able to tell us some information about their idea or their concern. And they were also able to upload any kind of documents, images, or whatsoever. And then once they had that information uploaded, other citizens were able to either like or make comments about that input. So part of this committee and kind of in the spirit of is to be transparent. And so what we did was we took all three inputs, which is the automotive, what I'm calling active transportation or bike, ped, and transit, and also the sensitive features, into one dashboard. So what you're able to do is go to the original post and get all the information from all three different categories, okay? So if we go back and take a look at the automotive, one of the questions that was asked is like, well, what do we do with this, right? When you're looking at this, what you see here is what I call like a spaghetti bowl of information. So what I did was, and mind you, this is my own assessment on this, and it can be altered or changed. But it was kind of a way to look at the information and clean it up. So if you take a look at this information, you start to look at the outer corridors, the lines in the outermost part of Bernie. You start to kind of zoom into that and you take a look at that. So when I was looking at this information, I kind of identified this as more of like a regional major characteristics. So this was connectivity, solutions in regards to the overall region. So taking that information, then this can be applied to some kind of major, regional major thoroughfare plan. And then start to drill down, then you're able to take a look at the local major thoroughfare plan. So this is, some of the lines that were identified here were very similar to the City of Bernie's major thoroughfare plan. So this could be information that can be passed over to them to update their information. And to start to dive deep down into that, some of the characteristics here were more of an added capacity. So this is if a lane was added to that roadway, or if it was a new roadway extension, then that, I kind of identified that as an added capacity potential project. And another one was operational characteristics. So operational is more of kind of a redesign of the roadway, it's a traffic light, signal change. So it's something a little bit more minor than an added capacity. And then another one that was picked out a lot was the roundabouts. We had a lot of input in regards to roundabouts. And then there was other suggestions that I identified as being addressed through zoning characteristics. So possibly something with zoning could be amended to that particular area, and then that could be a solution for that. And then we also did get some information in regards to bike ped related solutions, so that's going to be brought over to the bike ped portion of the crowdsourcing information. So that will be moved. And then there were also some regional local comments. One was like someone was offering drone services, so I kind of lumped that into its own little regional section. So as we look at the information, we try to clean it up. Here's an example as we zoom into one of the proposed ideas. So this is project number 15, Amman, which is the limit of 146, and then extending, or the miles are 4.32 miles from this intersection down over there. So I had to kind of measure that out. And then the recommendation from the citizen was to improve this road. And then we looked at the total number of comments, which was 5. There was 1 that was for it, and there was 3 that were against it. It also had 5 likes. So this was, when identified, this was an improved road needed, and also has something called detailed study needed. So in some cases, there were other elements, either in regards to sensitive areas, or also maybe there were some landowners that didn't want any development in that area. So I kind of would tag that project with detailed study needed. In other words, we just couldn't just take this and run with it. We have to do further analysis. And here's another example of an operational. So this is project 109, school at Cstl Creek. So one of the questions here was improve the bridge. So need a bridge built over the creek. Road is often in tough repair. And when I was kind of looking at this, I saw that there was already a bridge here already. So maybe it was just an improved bridge. So that was kind of my own observation. And I'm just kind of giving some examples of, like here's another operational one. Here's fixing the traffic timing for that intersection. And here's another operational, this is project number 29 on IH10. So this was kind of interesting because this was the limit was to Little Joshua Creek. And then, but one of the things here was under the notes that I found under one of the comments was that somebody in the subcommittee had already mentioned that this was being taken care of through project number 11. So, and here's another Ranger Creek subdivision. So this one, I actually modified this segment because it was just a small segment, so I went ahead and extended that to give it proper limits. And then, as I mentioned before, we have the original crowdsourced data, so we're able to go back and take a look at the original input. And in regards to added capacity, here are some examples. So this is the Cstl Extension. So somebody had mentioned this would be a good idea for that. Now, there was a total of 8 comments, 1 pro and 5 con, but it did have 21 likes. And I did put on there detailed study needed, because based on the sensitive information or the sensitive features input, there was a couple of landowners that didn't want any development in that area. So another example here is project number 126. So this would be a new road. It would be from Johns to IH-10 and Highway 46. So this is based on the BISD demographic information. So there is suggesting that there's going to be future growth here. So there's a look at adding this particular road segment here to help with that. Okay, so now that was kind of a quick overview on the automotive portion. Now I'm still working with the automotive, and I'm also still working on the active transportation and then the cars sensitive area information. But what I wanted to give you all an idea of was here's kind of the general region of the active transportation. So this is suggestions that came from citizens in regards to bike lanes, bike trails, crosswalks, sidewalks, or even trolley or bus routes, or trolley or bus stops. So this is some added information that we got from the crowdsourced information. And then we looked at the sensitive features. So this was the input that we got: so development plan, cave karst or spring, cemetery, historic site, landowner not interested in development. So this was the information that we got from that. Now, as we move forward with this committee, there was a list that I had received at the subcommittee in regards to some projects, what I'm calling priority projects, but maybe they're not, I don't know. But the whole idea of the crowdsourced information is connectivity. So if we start to look at the projects that this committee is looking at moving forward, we can start to identify kind of a project bank, if you will, in regards to the crowdsourced information. So we have the automotive connection there. So that's going to be added capacity. It's going to be operational, biped. And then if we take the active transportation portion of that from the crowdsource, then this is once again the biped and then transit. Then you start building up this network. And then finally, also taking into consideration the sensitive features. So all this is what's coming in from the crowdsourced information that can be utilized by this committee to advance projects. Okay? I wanted to show you one last thing. So as I mentioned before, this is the raw data that was collected through the crowdsourced effort. So there's an automotive, which is this right here. There's the biped and transit. And then there's the sensitive features. Okay. So at any point, you can click on one of these comments, and then you have the list. This is the original post here, and then any additional comments here. Let me go back to the biped, and this might be a better example here. So here's one, ID number 4. So here's the original post, and then on the far right side are additional comments. Now, this individual here actually uploaded some information in regards to this comment. And then there's, and anyway, so you're able to see additional information. So this is the original post here, and then this is everyone's comments on that original post. And then we can go over to automotive, and the same thing. So here's number 46. Good one. So here's some more information here. So here's actually some diagrams of that from that original post, and then everyone's comments. So, so at any particular point when you all are needing to look at information that was submitted through the crowdsource, you can use this dashboard to help identify additional information on that. And this was presented at the subcommittee a couple of weeks ago. And from that came what Northern was going to be showing here. And I think what she's done is an amazing job in a short amount of time. She's been able to take all this information and to present it in a manner that I think this committee is going to be able to use and move forward with. But are there any questions or concerns?
Well, let me ask one question. You mentioned that for several of these projects, you indicated there were so many negative comments, so many positive comments, and so many likes. And you're just assuming that the likes are what they are, that it's a positive, unarticulated comment, or how?
Well, the likes themselves, So you have 8 lights here, right? So if we go back to the original dashboard section, see if I can show you how this. Actually, so maybe y'all can see this, it's kind of small. But you have this heart here, so if someone liked it, then that's a like, and then you have the comments. So what I have to do is read through the comments and based on what I was reading, identify that as being a positive or a negative.
So a like could be a negative comment as well, is that correct? If you have a like and then the comment after is negative?
No, they have this the original post here. Someone liked it, okay?
The original post.
The original post. And then there's all these other comments here. And so what I did is I read through each one to try to deduce it, was that a pro or was that a con? And then I listed that, because that was the issue with the original application that, and it was brought up from this committee, which was that all you could do was like, you couldn't dislike. So in order to rectify that, I was going and reading the comments to identify the negative ones. But essentially, what y'all will have to do as a subcommittee is look at each particular project and then look at the raw data to determine how to move forward with that. So, but any other comments? I mean, did I answer your question?
Not entirely.
Okay.
If I understand right.
Think of it as Facebook, right? So you make a post and someone likes it. And you can have someone else to make a comment saying, I really don't like this, or I really like it. So in a sense, those are two different things.
Okay, but if I make a post on Facebook that says my dog died, and somebody says they liked it, that doesn't necessarily mean.
Well, there's something wrong with that.
It means that they acknowledge that they read it and they feel empathy, but it's a negative comment. And so are there some likes that are just clicked likes here, so people acknowledge they saw it, but maybe they did like it or maybe they didn't?
It's qualitative data that has to be interpreted into quantitative data.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very difficult to do.
Right.
Which is why we
Right.
My inclination, my assumption would be that it's meant to say they actually like the project because it's not quite Facebook, you know what I mean? It's
There's
not
also the opportunity to like comments too, right?
On this? Not on this one, not on this particular version, I don't think so.
Well, the point is that we're not going to make decisions based solely on the numbers of likes and comments. This is an indication that validates maybe a position that the committee might take. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, I mean, my 2 cents is that what you're trying to do here is you're trying to capture ideas from the community. And you're able to have other people comment on that. And you're never going to have a right or wrong in that kind of situation, but what you have here is an idea that you all might have not thought of that can be maybe moved forward into a potential project.
Any other comments?
Hope I can get this out, excuse me. On the bike ped component, we try to distinguish between recreational use versus socioeconomic, that I need a way to get from my home to my job, but I don't have a car. Are those distinguished within that component?
I haven't gone through that yet, because I was just invited back a couple of weeks ago, so I'm kind of looking at it for the first time in a long time. And so, but I'm still needing to weed through that, but that's something that I could do for the bike ped.
Based upon comments?
Based upon comments, okay. Because you could actually take some line work, but is that a linear creek, is that a path, is that a multi-use path? But that can be used to get from point A to point B for a job or something. So, do you have a question? But yeah, that's something to consider. There's like something that we have access to, it's called Strava. I don't know if y'all ever heard of it. So that's kind of one of the things that it kind of looks at. It looks at trends and it looks at routes. And one of the components on there is it being used for recreation, or is it being used to get to and from work or something like that. And even then, that can be kind of difficult to decipher. But that might be something to look at as well. But once again, that's kind of limited because that's only being used by people that use the application. It's not a good representation of the overall coverage of cycles.
So this is representative of the community's independent input, and we appreciate your efforts. If there are additional comments that come in as we begin to roll this out through this, it is going to be easy to distinguish those or segregate them from the prior comments and process those comments as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I guess I'm trying to understand your question. Are you saying that once you have the project selected to move forward, using this to get feedback on those projects?
Not necessarily get feedback on their projects that they're going to recommend, but people are moving to Bernie all the time. They're Googling around seeing what's this website? Okay, I want to offer some comments. If we get some new comments in, don't get nervous. I'm not
nervous.
I think how much more work do I have to do?
Yeah.
So, Don, are you saying that these comments would be coming in on this document as it exists now?
I'm just asking the question, if they do, is it easy to tell which ones come in after a certain date?
Yeah, they have a timestamp on that. So, in fact, I think it's still up, the
Yeah,
application
it is.
itself. So, so technically, we're still getting input from that.
Yeah.
What I did was just, actually, this dashboard should be connected straight to that. So you should be seeing any new content coming in through that dashboard. Now, the other evaluation was based on, I think, what I did like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Right.
So, but yeah, to your point, it can be revisited, and then once we have a process, then that process can be used to filter out that information. But I guess it would be a living document.
Good. Well, Cecilia, thank you to you and to AMPO. We appreciate the investment of your efforts and expertise in this.
And I know crowdsourcing is very challenging, and it's something that that we've been kind of doing kind of recently. So we're still also kind of learning as we move forward, but it is useful. I know, like the city of New Braunfels used some of the crowdsourcing that we did for them for their transit study. So as things come up, you can always go back and look at this information, you know, to get some additional ideas, or even for that project to get input. Anyway, I know I said 2 hours, but I'll stop. And but like I said, I definitely want to. Northern's done an awesome job by taking this idea and then making it into something that I think will be utilized by this community. So I'll pass it over to the board.
What if we said we had to get you off of the airplay there, I think,
Your
to share the screen?
Where's pushing buttons.
Well, that's a perfect segue, Cecilia. We've taken the crowdsourced data there. Cecilia's organized most of it and has it available to the committee. And Northern, finally, we waited long enough, and Northern said, I'll do it. She's taken that information and presented it in a project-by-project basis, which she's going to present to us now for all of the projects that you have, or some of them.
I have everything in a table, but I don't have it all connected yet.
And it's my hope that the project sheets that are up here, we will consider these on a project-by-project basis as a committee and say, you know, this is a project, this is what it consists of, it from point A to point B, special characteristics, it's a city project or county project or TxDOT project, and as a committee, we'll say we endorse or don't endorse that project, so that we get a list of projects that we do endorse moving forward. And that those projects that do move forward will become inserts or exhibits or part of the report that we submit. And while they may include some part of the crowdsourced data that Cecilia showed us, or at least referenced it, the thing we're actually approving or disapproving is the information that is organized by Northern here into this project sheet. Now that I really hope continues to be a living document that, you know, that's good for this budget cycle. Something comes up next time around, the next transportation committee can take this and say, here, let's update these project sheets.
Okay.
Yours.
So, what I did, I got all of the tables from the public input that Cecilia made, and I put it into several tables. So this is the database, and for those of you who have never dealt with the database, consider this like a potluck family dinner. The sheet we will look at is the dinner. These are all the dishes. So you've got the automobile, you've got the bike pedestrian, you've got sensitive features. There's also committee recommendations. Right now, the only thing in here is the subcommittee recommendations. And I've also included the City of Bernie CIP. The reason I did that is because when I went back to all of the issues, what have you, entered by the public, I wanted to be able to look at a single page like this. Everything on the left is from the public, and everything on the right would be supplemental information from those other dishes, the other tables. Some of them will have nothing. Some of them will have nothing because they haven't gotten to them yet. It's like this. This is a information, someone wanted a Adler extension. From the table with the sensitive features, I could see that there was something mapped though there. So I connected that row to this. It's hard to explain. The connections between the two tables I'm having to make manually. So some of these will not be complete, but you should be able to at some point go through all of these and see the information that the public put, plus any information from the other tables, from the other public tables, plus, there, this person's issue will be addressed by a City of Bernie CIP. There's another sensitive feature, there's another sensitive feature. There's another one where you've got this City of Bernie CIP plus the subcommittee information that will address this person's concern. The additional right-of-way, the jurisdiction, the potential funding sources, those were just things mentioned in our meetings that they would like, y'all would like to see on here. Those will take more work because it will take us actually having a conversation with that jurisdiction to get the information. They will know what kind of right-of-way is needed, what it will, the potential funding sources, but that's just a matter of getting the information from officials to include in here. But the main point of these was just to try to get the information off the map so that we can discuss them line by line by line, or we can look at them line by line. There are 198 from the public input. That's just the automotive. There are also 100-something pedestrian and bike that I haven't touched yet. So I don't know how you guys want to go about looking at this. If you want to create an electronic file with them, if we want to print them all out, it's entirely up to you guys.
Impressive.
Right.
I do. And this will also be, I realized 20 minutes before I walked over here, that I built that single page on top of the page that I created for the subcommittee without saving it. So I threw this together in about 20 minutes. It will get polished and look better, but, oh, how did it just come out? any rate, there's another page that looks very similar with our subcommittee. It will be your interim projects, it will be anything we come up with that will have the very same format. It will have sensitive features pulled in, it will have any information that you guys have will be pulled in.
Northern,
Mhm.
Bobby by the New York Barrels. On the left side then is a crowdsourcing related problem. On the right side is the committee or the municipal rate solution. Right?
It's multiple things. It will be, one section will be pulled from a table with the City of Bernie capital improvement projects. Another section will be pulled from a table of subcommittee projects. Another section is anything related from the sensitive features
Got it.
table.
Okay.
It's kind of in the background, you can't see, that's what it's doing, it's pulling from all these different sources.
How about those projects that may be the solution in the problem that's developed and presented by the agency? There weren't any complaints about it, there wasn't any crowdsourcing data. Are they gonna be on that list? I think they should, because they may not know the problem, but once it's brought up, it's, that's right, it's not my priority problem. But yeah, I can see how that's burdensome to me now that you think of it.
No, you're exactly right, Bobby. An example would be Highway 46 West. How many comments did we have? I don't think we had any crowdsourced information on Highway 46 West, but the project needs to be in the transportation planning document so that we are aware that somebody is solving that problem. It may solve another problem or create another problem, such as Coffin Road, okay? But we need to understand how it goes together.
Or a problem for folks, Commissioner, that really haven't bothered to get in
Yeah.
to give us that data.
Yeah, and those things, there is one table that I created that I am just entering information into, and it's the projects from the subcommittee, it's projects, it will be projects from the interim report that just need to go in there, and I'm following the same format so that we can just continuously pull those into reports as needed.
Yeah.
And the same things like the ones that no one has identified yet, or the policy
Doesn't mean
recommendations.
it's not a problem.
Right, it's just that no one's actually put it on paper yet, can be entered into that spreadsheet. How we get that to me, to get to the spreadsheet, I don't know.
So-
I'm just reporting out what I get.
So Northern, I'm trying to imagine sorting through 198 pages of one. And
It's fun.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, okay, well, are we gonna all individually read through 198 of them? Or in the process of putting your eyes on the stuff, is there a way you can separate some of the, like the drone suggestion? In other words, here, this doesn't address anything. Can we drop it down here and it'll be available, but it doesn't rise up to the level of scrutiny by all of our eyes?
I mean, I can do that if you guys want me to do that, or I can put all 198 out there for you guys to look through.
Under special projects.
It's just entirely, you can just scroll through them pretty quickly. But like I said, I would just need input on how you guys want to see it so that I can do that. Right now, they're just,
So this is primarily from the crowdsourced material?
this is all crowdsourcing, yes. And plus the subcommittee, the ones that I've gotten entered manually, subcommittee. But yes, it is a process that is not complete because I am literally going line by line through the 198. And if I recognize that this one has a City of Bernie project that will address it, then I link those records. Or if I know there's a sensitive feature, which I've been keeping the table up on one side and the map of sensitive features up on the other, and just comparing them online. So, if there's something I've missed, let me
It can help
know.
with more eyes on there.
Yes.
Like other eyes.
Yes. So if I missed something, let me know. So you can't do it by keyword, because if you put in there school street, you could miss something for misspelling, you could miss something because, or accidentally link something that someone could have been talking about school street down here, but it's a North School Street issue. So you can't use words, you just kind of gotta look through it.
What did you do, what program?
It's Airtable. I'm gonna get it out of Airtable, once we get this, and I believe, allegedly, this can be converted into Google data, which will stay around forever. But yeah, Airtable was what was used to.
So I wonder if you could make where we could, if somebody like Jeff could look at it and know automatically this is, because I know that's what Jeff wants to do.
Mhm.
Just look through all 198.
Yeah.
But could make those connections so that we could say, hey, this is, we didn't think about this or whatever. It's amazing.
And I would say, just my personal ask would be that we wait on the right-of-way questions and the jurisdiction questions until we start whittling them down. So I don't have to enter 198 jurisdictions and 198 funding sources, that kind of thing.
I think that's a great idea. It needs to be in a screening format, it seems to me, at
No,
this
I
point in
agree.
time. Yeah.
So for the benefit of our one-person public relations committee who resides back here. Hi, Zach. Is it safe to say that the crowdsourced data resulted in the recommendation or identification of 198 transportation suggestions from the community?
Automobile suggestions.
Automobile
And
suggestions.
I can tell you. $143 bike and pedestrian suggestions.
So what we did as a committee is we went to the community and we set up a system to give us your input. What do you think we need to do for transportation in this community? We got 198 automobile suggestions and 140 some odd hike and bike suggestions. And the next step of the process is to sort of overlay that with the sensitive areas that we are aware of and see how it fits together with the city's capital improvement plan and the county's capital improvement plan, which won't be hard to tell, and TxDOT's capital improvement plan for this county. Is that right?
That's it.
Did you get all that?
It's that simple, huh?
You need somebody to back check and if they fit in the right category and such, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
don't, anything about the categories. I am, for the most part, all I'm doing is combining the data that was given to me. So I rely on.
So today's my last meeting.
Run away now.
Move into New Mexico.
I'd be happy to help if I can. Happy. Yeah, I can help.
As happy as Northern.
Right,
is.
Exactly.
No, I
Not
love
as
doing
much
this
as
kind of
you-
stuff, so it's
yeah.
not a
Well,
problem.
it's very good. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Can you sit down? Okay. Well, it's fine, because, like I said, I only, another report after everybody overlooked.
Marcus, glad to have you join us today.
Thank you.
Here, here. Good to see you.
So do we need to talk at all about the next steps after that and how we, how the committee takes that information and makes it more better selected or more meaningful?
I think so. I'd actually like to get Jeff's presentation
Oh,
to
sure.
kind of lay it out. That's kind of not such a huge block of stuff. And I know Jeff's got some stuff. I don't know, how much more do you have to?
And what's another question?
That was awesome.
Well, thank you, Northern. Don't stop.
Keep connecting them.
But if anybody wants to help Northern, I'm sure she would appreciate the help, except for mine. I don't need my help.
So Northern, what kind of help do you need?
At this point, I need another set of eyes looking at, letting me know where you see the connections. And it's all it's interconnected database, so I have the tables I'm telling the tables where to look for the other information. if you see a connection, I would say email it to me maybe. But again, I will have to get the pages to a public or some sort of forum where you guys can see it.
Those 198, do you have it in like Excel?
I can actually get it into PDFs and maybe just convert it to Google Slides.
Because that program's a web-based software, right?
Yeah, I would be able to share that probably.
You can embed it.
You can?
And then you can also add users at different levels. But I'm gonna.
I think there's limitations unless you're a paying customer.
Yeah.
I think there might be limitations unless you pay.
I paid for 1 month of
Okay.
this because I was not gonna be limited. But that's another reason I'm getting out of this once to Google and into Google.
I'm a cheapie, it was slow on me.
Okay, well, if you're done, we are gonna move on to the capital improvement program plan. Jeff Carroll's got put together for the city of Bernie to see how their system works, and keep in mind that Northern has incorporated the link between the capital improvement plan and the crowdsourced data that you just presented. So what I see is us coming together with something like this from maybe the county's TxDOT's transportation improvement plan. Another list of projects that won't be in the same format, but there can be a link. And then we will see what all is going on and make rational decisions. So.
Sure. Afternoon, everyone. So the city of Bernie uses a CIP, capital improvement plan. We use a 5-year CIP plan. It's a planning tool. So we prepare these sheets every fall, winter. So these sheets are actually pretty close to being a year old now. But what we do in the fall, winter is we look at last year's 5-year CIP plan. What projects might have happened in the last year that need to be removed because they've been built now, or maybe sometimes they just fall off the plan because we decide they're not needed anymore. But at the same time, we move new projects on. And what we try to do is we do our best to project, just for kind of finance planning. This might be a next year project, this might be a 5-year project. We have a couple projects here that are just identified as future. So it's a project we've identified that we want to do, but we don't have an immediate time frame for when we can do it. So this is a planning tool that we use in the fall every year, and then in the spring, we decide and we come up with what each department wants to put into that year's budget. So in the spring, so I prepared these last fall, and then in the springtime, when we started first making our draft of this year's budget for the city, with feedback from others here at the city, I prepare what we have in this particular year, and that's what we base our budget on. But a lot of, we get into these bigger projects, some of them will span 2 or 3 years. And the 5-year CIP helps us plan, because there could be a project that might take us 9 months to a year to design, and it might take us a 1.5 to 2 years to construct, so we need to be able to plan that over a multi-year time frame. So that's the purpose of this. Some of these projects have been in the CIP for longer than 5 years. They just getting pushed for whatever reason. There's no reason to move forward with them. There's identified. This is a planning tool, like I said, a planning tool for us to have some ideas. So I'll just go over quickly the individual projects that we have included in here. So I have, and I printed copies for the members.
I have
Okay.
the 2 stacks.
So there's two separate stacks. One is a roadway project and one is a drainage project. And there are lots of roadway and drainage get intertwined quite a bit. So we kind of have both of it. So the first one in the roadways pile is the 5 points traffic circle. So we have a schematic picture there that our consultant put together for us a 1.5 years or so. Also, since the time that we prepared this CIP, we have a consultant that's given us further schematic level. That's the other part. Some of these have decent engineering schematic background, and some of these are very, very schematic. Again, it's a planning tool. It's not something that we go, let's go build this right away. So this is the 5-point schematic. So we have in here that it's going to be $2.8 million to do this 5-point project. We have this in projected right now in the 24-25 year. This is all TxDOT right away, so it takes a lot of conversation with TxDOT. And the big one here is potential for right-of-way acquisition. So we have 5 different alternates that our consultant has put together recently, and we're still kind of working through on some other options for the 5 plans. I'm just gonna go quickly through all of them, okay? Yeah. So the second one in my list is, assuming we all are in the same order, is Bucky's Way improvements. Really, this was something, it's in my CIP because the development agreement between Bucky's and the city of Bernie requires us to build this little road. So it's in my plan to build a little couple 100-foot road from I-10 to the southern property line. So that we're contractually, legally required to build that road some period of time for them to do their project.
Quick question, Jeff.
Sure.
The development to the north, sorry, to the south of that, will it tie into this segment of the road, or is there still a gap?
So there's 2 gaps there that are owned by the same landowner. That's a road that's on our major thoroughfare plan. So if that property were ever to be sold and developed, we could require them to build that road. So the main street will continue down. And so the meeting that we had a couple weeks ago, that road will eventually turn into the north-south road that's in Regent Park, Tilbury.
But that was one of the projects that this project committee recommended that somebody might actually want to not wait for the developer, but go ahead and do it. It's part of the plan.
So next is a Cascade Caverns project, and as some of you might know, we separately submitted a project to MPO for funding on Cascade Caverns, Scenic in Old San Antonio. The limits of what we submitted for MPO don't match exactly what we had put in the CIP. Again, the CIP is a planning tool. When we went a little bit further with our project, we redefined the scope a little bit. So this portion was for the roundabout and really just through the Scenic Loop intersection on Cascade Road. And you'll see as we go through here, we have other pieces. So this one we had starting in 22-23, continuing into 23-24. And for those of you that may have heard or may have not heard, our project was selected by the NPO to be funded. We just don't know the details yet of when. Yeah, we got it. It might be 4 years from now, but we'll find that out here shortly in the next month. The next page is a continuing portion of Cascade all the way to the south limb limits. And if you notice, this one is just called out as future. So we're not even planning for this in the next 5 years. But this is just a project that we've identified for the future. Yes.
I know I'm not a member of the committee, but I'm just curious, one sentence answer for why they need 4 lanes on Cascade Caverns Road all the way to South Line?
For the just future on today's thoroughfare plan, that's what the road section calls for.
The projects committee recommended just a simple turn lane be added, just to allow traffic to flow in each direction more quickly, and to pull left turn first out of Farms Way. So that would be the short term.
So today's thoroughfare plan calls for it to be our city thoroughfare plan calls for it to be a 4-lane road with a median and turn lanes, and that's what we designed around. We are very soon going to be updating our thoroughfare plan, so that roadway section could change in the future. But that's what our today thoroughfare plan.
Did you want 6 lanes or?
I'll address that on Facebook.
Okay, so next is Enterprise Parkway at Scenic Loop. That industrial park back there has really seen a lot of development in the last 5-10 years, and there's a lot more truck activity back to that industrial park than I think the original developer thought there was going to be. So we're having some plan for some turn lane improvements at that intersection to help get those trucks in and out of that location. So then again, this was planned out for 5 years. The next one is a project that would continue Enterprise Parkway. Today it's a cul-de-sac that dead ends. This was a conversation many years ago about coming up with a route to extend it out to I-10. This is something we're kind of watching, that now with the bridge improvements and all the TxDOT improvements, is this connection needed is more, so that's something, it's in the 5-year mode right now, but we're watching that. Continuing next, we have a portion of Scenic Loop, between I-10 and Cascade. Following up with that is the south side of Scenic Loop from there's the entrance into that neighborhood all the way to I-10. And this is one that was in the interim report as well. Yeah, Sophia, sir. Yep.
Is that Beauty Lumber right there, or Lone Star?
That's the
Kelvin
Collision Center. Yeah. And that's one, again, if the commercial tracks or the future next dealership track were ever to be developed, that'd be something that the city could get those people to develop a portion of that roadway. So the next pile is the actual drainage category. That was in the street budget. The next is in our drainage CIP. Again, so we have the stormwater utility that's raising money for projects. These could be future stormwater projects, or we could find other ways to fund these projects. We have 2 culverts on Adler Road, No Name Creek and Curry Creek. So this was to improve, they're both low water crossings now that flood frequently, to improve those crossings and make those drivable. That would give better access to the sheriff's office, and Adler's kind of a connecting road through that area. The next project is Cascade Caverns, Old San Antonio. There's a lot of drainage work that's needed there. That $9 million MPO project includes like $3 million of drainage improvements. This is a good portion of that. When we prepared this initial CIP, it was thought that this would be several projects, that we'd have to do the drainage project first, and then we'd come back later and be able to do this portion of the roadway project, and then do the next roadway project. But we kind of put a lot of those together in the MPO funding project. Yes, Lance?
Not the sandbagging on this one, but forgive the pun, but are there any detention structures at all planned for this rerouting here? It looks like a rerouting of the flow and maybe a widening of the flow, but are there any
Yes.
to slow the flow down?
Yeah, we, in our stormwater master plan, we have some detention facilities included in this area.
In this,
Correct.
thank you.
Really, this area in general, at one point it was outside the city limits, but it's inside the city limits now. But there's a lot of fill that was placed on that tract next to the hotel that's diverted and changed the natural drainage patterns in that area. And we're trying to restore that back to the more natural condition. The next one is Johns Road, which is similar that was up on the screen earlier. We have a project identified to improve Johns Road, and it'd be a road project, but it also includes a lot of underground drainage system, and a significant amount of water that crosses Johns Road that goes into that neighborhood. We've had some flooding of houses in that area, and this would be kind of diverting and changing that water direction. And then our final drainage project is the bridge itself at Mango Creek, so just south of Cook Road. That's a low water crossing as well, and that's one of our last drainage fatalities, our more recent drainage fatalities, so that's something we're tracking to put that as a big bridge structure to span that. So we have this estimated now at a $2 million project. We're looking and now analyzing with our drainage plan, different drainage events, and also even a bigger bridge that would allow some more stream bank restoration in that area. So those are the projects that we're working on right now in that project.
Thank you, Jeff. Other questions?
On that last drainage project, you have staff exploring reduced costs at 25, with 25 and 50 being different?
Yes. We with the drainage master plan, it'll decrease it, obviously, it decreases cost.
Right.
But we're looking at a 10-year and 25-year option.
There's a difference between 50 and 100?
Yes. It's how many, basically how tall it is above the drainage, and that makes the bridge that much wider.
Right.
General rough cost of a bridge, 1 square foot of a bridge is about $110 a square foot. So think of a 300-foot wide bridge by 60 feet wide, how quickly that adds up. So anything you can do to reduce those costs, or the lengths and widths of the bridge.
Alex?
I was gonna ask John a question. Is the AMPO presentation going to be available on the Transportation Committee website?
Talking about the policy?
It should be there on your archives in the policy section.
Under the KCB?
No.
Federal Register, or that's
No,
under the AMPO?
that's under the AMPO. We record all of our policy.
Thank you.
So again, just kind of wrapping up the CIP then, so this is last year's CIP here, in the next handful of months, we'll probably start next 5 years plan for CIP, for what the city's plan will be, and then in the spring, we'll start working on next year's budget.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Next, I'd like to turn, the second page of your package is the draft agenda. We've looked at this a couple of times. I'd like to get some feedback on the agenda, and actually I'd like if we could get an approval on it. Doesn't mean we can't come back and amend it or change it, but I'd like to get some kind of buy-in that this is about what y'all are looking for here, so we can begin to pick up parts of this in earnest. Begin with an introduction draft, which is actually included here. It's borrowed substantially from the prior interim report that indicates the purpose and the participants that were involved in this. Then I think we need a background that talks about just Kendall County in general, talk about our county transportation system, essentially how many miles of state roads and county roads and city streets we have, the different modes of transportation that we do and don't have here. We'll talk a little bit about the county transportation plan history. I don't think that's a long in-depth history, but to recognize that we have, do have a substantial history that's presented on the committee's website, and refer them to that. We'll talk about the principles and processes that we use in this planning effort, which is, from my perspective, community-based solutions, not coming from transportation experts outside the community, but these are ideas that come from the community or integrated into other solutions by being presented by agencies. Mentioned our commitment to transparency, commitment to minimizing adverse environmental impacts. We want to talk about the importance of aesthetics, particularly those aesthetics that are characteristic of Kendall County. We want to talk about costs and funding, just in general, as a principle. And we want to talk some, response to Ben's comment, that we want to address latent demand creation. Not that we can solve that problem, but say that, we would prefer to develop a transportation system that doesn't create latent demand. Just a little discussion about that. Then we need a technical foundation that is basically our population growth. We're going to talk some about socioeconomics in there. Talk about traffic counts and travel demand models and trends, and that I think we can draw from AMPO and from TxDOT. I don't think we need to go get that now, but I think we do need to have some kind of technical underpinning for our recommendations. We want to talk about the importance of primary and secondary school traffic and how that influences mobility in the community. We want to give a big explanation of the crowdsourcing data and how that is there, probably pin that to the report. And we want to talk about environmental development factors. I don't know what that means, but I think we need to address it.
Economic?
Excuse me, you're right, sorry. We want to talk about the short-range program, which we were given a specific charge to develop a short-range program. We will be developing that. And then the list of projects is what we've been started talking about today. We will list those probably by the agency that would be likely responsible for seeing those through. I don't know if we're going to be able to have the effect on the congestion and the levels of service, but I think that, if we were traffic engineers, we would. but I think we need to say something, we think this is going to improve congestion or not. Our second charge is the long-range program, basically the same information for the long-range program, with the addition of some things that we don't have, like we need to talk about, do we see that we will have or should have some public transportation facilities? Do we want to recommend that the powers that be create a regional mobility authority? Just some things that are kind of forward, very far forward-looking, and begin that dialogue. Section on policy recommendations. You know, what we're trying to accomplish with that is preserve the Hill Country environment, the Hill Country character. Talk about trying to maintain some kind of reasonable residential densities. Talk about access management, interconnectivity of subdivisions, and the preference for acquiring land along existing rights of way rather than create greenfield alignments. And that doesn't mean that there won't be greenfield alignments, because there may be. A developer may want to create a greenfield alignment across his own property. Certainly we wouldn't object to that. But you know, going out, taking the initiative and saying, we're going to come get your property, or we're going to go through your house, you know, we probably would prefer that we not have to do that. Some other recommendations, things like we should, we may want to recommend that the city and the county coordinate our geometry of the roadway cross sections, so that if the city ever does annex any additional area and the county develops stuff, maybe they actually might meet up and be compatible. Talk about a coordinated major thoroughfare plan. I think we need some discussion on a pedestrian infrastructure plan, maybe a countywide bicycle mobility plan, towards the sidewalks on vehicular corridors, and I think we need an acknowledgement for the people that weren't really part of the process, but you know, helped us substantially. That is, the Bernie ISD has been very helpful in terms of advice about how their transportation facilities or operations might work better. Hospitality, the city of Bernie for their hospitality, AMPO for all the good stuff that they've done, and then presenters that Tim and his committees, and Ben's committees have brought to us here. That's what I see as the sort of outline.
Commissioner, understanding full well that for items 4 and 5 on the program list, that Fair Oaks doesn't have their list in yet. Is this a good time to ask when a good drop dead date to write that list? And you know, I mean, it's only fair that the committee gets to review some of those projects before it comes on the entire list. So, are we going to can we discuss it now, or can I ask now, or because I already asked, or is that item 6? It looks like 6 could be, you know, projects not yet identified, I think it is.
Well, I think it's a good question, Bobby. You know, as I mentioned, we have other projects, you know, the TxDOT has a lot of projects we haven't even talked about. And while they're going to pursue that in some form or fashion, the cities and the county have the opportunity to accelerate or decelerate those. You know, by either making a contribution to move the project forward or objecting to it. And so I think it has to be part of the plan, and we have to give the agencies our recommendation. So I think my approach to this, Bobby, is do it as soon as you can. I wouldn't say, you know, it's an emergency. I know the mayor of Bernie would like us to finish this post haste, but I'm committed to making sure we get a good report that guides the community forward and the county forward for many years, rather than rush this through and not do it.
That's fair. Okay. I'll let the city manager know.
So Don, where is that TxDOT info for our county? Is that on TxDOT?
I think it would be within the MPO. They have the transportation improvement plan, I guess. And Tim's familiar with it, that when he was there, we can get these things. It takes a little bit to dig it out, but it's readily available.
I mean, if we can get hold of it, it seems like the projects committee can take a look at it, kind of see how it fits in with the overall thoughts that we have.
It just needs to be done, and there are gonna be things that, for example, they'll have on their 3351, you know, it may not be even in Kendall County, maybe in Bear County, but it influences our transportation or Mount. It could be, you know, increasing the size of Interstate 10 from 4 lanes with one-way frontage roads to 6 lanes with 1 lane frontage. You know, things that, they affect mobility. We need to know about them, but that's not gonna really, we're not gonna influence the interstate stuff. But we might influence, say, 3351, or let's say if we wanna have, make sure that all of our critical infrastructure, our police and fire stations and hospitals are linked with a transportation system that is functional during all 100-year floods. Well, we probably need to make a recommendation that somehow we figure out how to get through the Herf and Esser 46 intersection. I mean, that's an important deal. Somehow we gotta figure that out.
So Cstl, how difficult is it to find all of that stuff through the info?
Well, I mean, are you talking about our TIP? Because we have that online. We have an interactive mapping application that has our TIP and also our long-range plan. So all that's available online.
Can you search by county?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interactive map. But I can bring that, send that to you all. As far as the.
If you could get it just for the county, I always have to sit through there and click.
But you're talking about, but you're not talking, because there's the TIP and there's the MTP.
Yeah.
So we have access to that. We can give that to y'all. I can give that to y'all tomorrow.
It's online.
It's online too. We have an interactive mapping application. So everything's mapped and all the information is there. And you know, if you're referring to text dot projects, that's maybe something a little different.
TxDOT has that website.
Yeah, the project tracker.
Model, and then you can.
Yeah.
use that to click up the different roadways, and then one's funded, how much they got.
Yeah, so all that's there.
Okay, I'll beg.
I think it's a great outline, Don. I think it's a fantastic start, but I do have one quick question. I really do. I think you spent a lot of time. It's very thoughtful and it's well reasoned and well thought out. In 2E, in the last Romanet 6, we're addressing latent demand, but in 5A Romanet 3, we're avoiding latent traffic demand. Did you want those two to be consistent, either address in both places or avoid in both places? Because in my trade, words matter, so I'm just, some folks might read this differently.
Well, in my opinion, we want to avoid latent.
Okay, well, I suggest we say that then in 2E.
That's a fair
as well.
suggestion. If that's everybody else's.
I think it is. I think that's the intent. Okay.
You need a second.
Ah.
What else?
Well, so, you know, I have I guess a bias toward let's make existing infrastructure as efficient as it can be and scale out accordingly. So, you know, I would argue looking at some of our nodes, they're not the most efficient, right? So, I don't know if that falls under a principal planning kind of thing. But also when you look at efficiency, you also really are usually also facilitating cost benefit efficiency, not just roadway efficiency, but also like if you have a more efficient node, well then you can often save costs elsewhere. Because you're not having to say, okay, let's add another connector over here, we're gonna have to expand this roadway to facilitate additional terminals or whatever. Does that register at all?
Well, conceptually it does. I don't see where do you want to put it here? How do you want to
Ben, is that part of access management interconnectivity in section 6, in terms of policy recommendations?
That could be, that's where I was, because I was looking at it from a standpoint of the principles of processes and then policy recommendations, which
think it
do
might be.
dovetail to some degree. I don't know if it's under access management, but it may be about, you know. I mean, I guess, you know, the assumption is that's how transportation planners think, how do we make this system most efficient? But I could also see where sometimes it doesn't seem to translate into actual outcomes.
So wouldn't it be important to have it, to make sure that whenever you look at this, that it was considered, so therefore it's a principle and process that this committee went through was to look at the node. We were given a presentation on it and the efficiency. So to me, it's a principle, and then, because policy is a different thing altogether, we could do it in both areas, but personally, I think it should be a principle and process, because we did consider that as a committee.
And we'll do so perhaps going forward for the recommendations, right? Agreed. So yeah, perhaps under the principles.
And
You know,
cost benefit, efficient design, with,
you know, design that facilitates efficient mobility.
And you're saying don't overbuild.
I think that plays into it, yes. But I mean, even like, you know, we had a presentation from, you know, from Indiana, from Carmel, Indiana, about how they decided to go to, I mean, they have like 130 roundabouts. Now the state of Indiana is shifting its entire policy to embrace their solutions because they're so efficient. And they boost the quality of life, but they're also so efficient. And we can say that here in Texas, but oftentimes the mentality tends to default to traditional paradigms of engineering that aren't really, may not actually equal efficiency. It's just the way we do it. Sure. And I'm all about, let's get beyond that.
I think intuitively, your municipal guys, not big jet, don't want to overbuild because we have to pay for that percentage when we the city.
Yeah.
I'm not talking bad about TxDOT or anything, but I'm not that TxDOT guy.
Well, I think, you know, Mr. Kite, I think you've made the point in the past that, you know, 3-lane road with a center turn lane, you know, or 2-lane with a center turn lane can be super efficient relative to the 4-lane, which gets back to Bitsy's question earlier with Jeff, you know. Yeah. So again, it gets into both transportation outcomes, but to your point, it also gets into cost efficiencies.
Same cities are cheap, which is more conservative.
So is that for current and future roadways?
Yeah,
Are you saying?
it would be retrofit for efficiency and, I mean, you know, and again, you're trying to wordsmith it, I'm not coming up with that for you, but.
okay. Well, I've got a bullet 7 that says designs that facilitate efficient mobility solutions. And I'm gonna put that down until you tell me to do something else.
Let's leave it like that.
Okay. Anything else?
I think it looks good.
All right, Bitsy, did you make a motion?
I did.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Does anybody object to adopting this as the outline, with the addition of, with the changing addressing to avoiding latent demand, and the addition of temporarily, anyway, designs that facilitate efficient mobility solutions?
Can I add another thing? Does equity, should that be, is that, maybe that's somewhere in here already?
Equity.
Well, when you think about it, so, we've talked about this many times. If the transportation system is built around cars, you have to have a car to use it. Okay, I mean, yes, unless there's a bus, but if there's no bus, you have to have a car to use it. If you have to have a car, you have to be able to afford a car, afford repairing a car, afford insurance for a car, afford fuel for a car. It's a pretty big equity factor for some people. And I grant you that maybe in this room, we're pretty comfortable in our financial status. There may be others who are less comfortable. Do we want to keep that in mind as we guide transportation.
Well, there was a mention of adding public transportation under the long range
Via,
program.
via.
Well, but again, well, yeah, that's a solution, but I guess from a principal standpoint, you know, to consider
Okay.
socioeconomics in the.
There are socioeconomic demographic data in the technical foundation.
Also the cross-section, because that's where, I know, for example, our NPO submittal, we didn't have shared use paths and bike lanes or that equity solution that would have been considered. So there is an item for cross-sections, and that's something that we can address. Every street section needs to have sidewalks, or what those sidewalks are, on pavement, least use of.
I think it's a legitimate question, Ben. Keep in mind, I don't have a vote in the process, so it's really for the committee to decide. But my opinion is that for this committee to get into the nuances of transportation equity is a lot on top of what we got already. I think we can be aware of it, but we do need to bring this to a close, and I think we have an understanding, we can mention that we've got an eye to that or inclination to that, but I don't see that as one of our driving principles or that we're gonna.
Well, okay, so I guess I'm biased toward being a little more holistic, and the reason I'm gonna throw this out is like, even as I look at the economic development needs of the region, obviously there are certain issues with shortages of workers, and a factor of that can be that people who earn minimum wages or low wages can't afford to even get here, much less if they get here, like live here, to even get to where they need to work. You see what I'm saying? So I sit there and go, what is transportation for? Is it just for convenience for those who can afford certain, cars? Or is it facilitate?
I get what you mean. Okay, my response to that is, if we're gonna say, okay, do we want to improve Johns Road, or do we want to recommend the county provide a bus route between here and San Antonio for people to ride? Okay, I think, that is way beyond what we can decide as a committee. I think we can be sensitive to it and recognize that we've got a problem with that, and that what we recommend could influence that, but I don't want to get into the business of choosing priorities. Which ones?
Before, we tried that. The ACOG reverse review. I mean, you run a bus with 5 or 6 people on it, you can't afford it. The equity balances itself out. If you don't make enough money to live in Berkeley to do that, well, you don't live in Berkeley.
Well, I think that's the
Takes
key.
care of itself.
I think that's the key, Ben. I see you can touch on that issue, maybe Don, he's offering the right section 3E. Economic development factors, because if you don't have folks that can afford to get here to work, if they can't drive here, or walk here, or bike here, can't take a bus here, they gotta live here. Well, our housing prices aren't exactly cheap either. So if they can't get here and they can't live here, who's gonna work here? So that may be an economic development factor discussion, I think.
It would be, and the market will drive that.
I think
If
so.
you can't find workers,
Yeah.
employers will have to get creative in how they get employees. And that goes, to your point, beyond what we're asking for.
Technically, it can also be taken into consideration for right-of-way drainage projects. That's always an equity issue with the national transportation, so it could be included, just that we're aware of it. You know what I mean?
That concept that we're aware of, that drive our recommendations or your recommendation.
I think it's a completely different discussion for the community, because my observation is Ben's comments automatically led us to minimum wage employees that aren't able to get to the grocery store to sack groceries or to the restaurant to wait tables. So when Rich chimed in, we all of a sudden have a discussion about the moderate middle class professional that needs to buy a home so they can teach in our schools, or the young business owners. And I think we're just opening up, we might as well put in 2 more pages of tables of content, talk about social needs. And I just, I'm sure that our objective is driven to that.
Don't we already have that in here? Don't know your opinion, Ben, but on section 7C, 1 and 2. Other recommendations, pedestrian infrastructure, countywide bicycle mobility plan, sidewalks. I mean, is that our opportunity to communicate what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that a
yeah.
good
So,
spot?
and also to Dixie's point, I mean, you know, we do have some of these elements in there that we're saying these are the traditional solutions. That would make sense. I guess it's a matter of also planning with that in mind. I mean, if you have an area that's high density apartment buildings, then maybe it makes sense to also facilitate multiple modes there, not just, oh yeah, there's a trail over there, guys. Yeah, good luck getting to it. I mean,
That could also be put in the table that we have in that area, if there's a project, a road project, actually list out, there needs to be pedestrian and bike at this location as well.
right. Well, I'm throwing it out there because I do think it's kind of relevant, because are we planning transportation for just those who can afford certain modes, or are we planning mobility? That becomes the question. There's a difference. And there's an assumption that, oh yeah, everyone's gonna be able to afford X, Y, Z, Q going forward, but, you know, as cities grow, they tend to diversify socioeconomically. Yeah. So I'm just.
Section 7.
There's nothing wrong with redundancy, that we can comment to that within the economic development factors and take that same statement and put it over here under the pedestrian infrastructure or whatever.
Well, I'm gonna suggest that what I'm hearing is that the committee's comfortable not listing it in the table of contents, but leave it to your eternal vigilance to make sure that we mention it in the body of the report.
If that's how the committee feels, I mean, that's how the committee
That's
feels.
my read, but I don't know.
I don't know if that's, I mean, that's your read of those who spoken, but I guess.
So we would put it in the policy recommendations, is that what you're saying?
I think that we need to mention some of the concepts he's
Right.
talking about.
Within the report.
Within the body of the report.
I don't know why I wouldn't have a piece of of this very long list. I don't know why that's so onerous to have it. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I mean,
There's an
that
objection.
committee can do their thing.
Okay, there's an objection, then we need to vote on the objection, I guess, or.
Sure, whatever. I move that our report have a line item that in the table of contents that references equity as a component of our you know, I don't know if I'm gonna say, I don't know if I'm gonna say transportation policy or transportation principles, one of those. Okay, it's a line item that goes in under.
It's either or.
Either or both.
But aren't you
You think it would be
opening
policy
up
or
a can
condition? I'm sorry?
Aren't you opening up a can of worms? You know, I sat on several committees for affordable housing, and we met with the developers, and they said, why should we build affordable housing when we make little or no profit, when we turn around and build a $500,000 house and make good profit? They weren't interested in helping. And this equity you're talking about is, if you make minimum wage, well, you're not gonna be able to live in a $500,000 home.
Totally agree.
So are you saying that the rest of us should throw into that and pay for them? Or what exactly are you driving at?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that right now, all of us are throwing in to pay for transportation, right? So the question becomes, what is that transportation for? Well, I know it's partly for me to get to HEB from where I live, right? So I can go shop, get my groceries. I don't know why we would say that, hey, just transportation for cars takes precedent over any other modes of transportation that may benefit those who can't afford cars.
Now, take off your mask.
Since we know the way Bernie is going to develop based on their current master plan, we know that the density inside of Bernie is going to get more and more dense. So you will have more people who either want to drive their car or are just starting out in their professional career and can't a forecast every day. Maybe we can put that somewhere that, you know, I don't know where it fits, but as the density increases, we need to increase focus on lights and pedestrians, yeah.
Well, you know, they've talked for years about planned neighborhoods where the housing is there and they're talking about high density like apartments and condos and all. But then also the restaurants and the offices and all that are right there within the walking. Well, that sounds good, but it's not happening. So, you know, and I know the government has proposed that we have these livable neighborhoods, but it all goes back, if you don't make the $15 an hour, you yourself needs to understand that you're gonna have to live with that, and you're gonna live in an apartment that is probably not real expensive at all, and you're gonna be able to walk to work or walk to the store or whatever you're doing. So,
You know, I think you can
you're just
avoid,
opening a can of.
I think you can avoid any controversy on this by simply pointing out in our final report that there is a significant number of recommendations to offer both bike and walking paths.
To support equity.
You know, without getting into terms that have different meanings to different people. I think a lot of that stuff is in it. I certainly was in our subcommittee report. We did a lot that were relating to schools, but there were other recommendations in the subcommittee report that led to that. And, you know, hey, the guy that leads the worship team at my church lives in modestly subsidized housing in Cascade, Caverns. He and his wife have 2 little kids. They have 1 car. He walks to work. His church is like a quarter of a mile away, so it's easy. So, I mean, I think the points can be addressed just in the way we write the report up.
I think if you follow that up with a nod to the dilemma and to the problem that you talked about, I think there's a size issue within the city of Bernie and Kendall County and a distance issue. There's such a, sometimes far distances for few people. But it seems like to acknowledge that information in the report, and in addition to the pedestrian bike recommendations, is probably as far as we could go at this point in time, is what I'm thinking. But I think a statement to that effect would be part and parcel of the report. And just say it has to be considered in the future. It's the current conditions don't warrant, or may not warrant, we don't know. See what I'm saying? I don't think we can solve to the problem.
Yeah, no, and nor do I necessarily think, oh, we need to have sidewalks all over the bloody place, because there might hypothetically be somebody who wants to walk in a place that's really not designed for that purpose. I guess I'm just trying to be thinking about, again, to make sure that we're not biasing this toward those of us who actually come from some amount of privilege or of that, which, I mean, you don't show up in the room here because you're in here because you learned how to either self-advocate some way, or you've established yourself professionally, and frankly, you drove here. So, I'm not trying to even take the whole meeting and run this way. That's not really been my intention. My intention is to say, are we compensating for that? Like, yes, it comes out through some recommendation pieces, but should we name that as a considerable consideration? That honestly, if you look at the Economic Development Corporation strategic plan that you referenced in the previous meetings, it's also emphasizing that should be considered as part of the equation. So,
Well, Ben, what you're really talking about is non-vehicular mobility, right?
Yeah,
I
basically.
mean, it's people won't buy a car.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in your number 7C, we call it pedestrian infrastructure. Well, it really should be non-vehicular infrastructure. It's bicycles, it's sidewalks, could be other. I mean, based on what you're saying, Ben, the issue of presenting viable options for those who can't afford to buy or maintain a car to get around in our community ought to be encapsulated somewhere, and that's probably the best place to put it. Just call it non-vehicular infrastructure and address it there in some component, because we're sensitive to, you know, heavy sidewalks, bicycle paths, and others. I don't know what the other might be. It could be public transit, it could be a trolley, it could be an automated trolley service. You know, looping around downtown Adler, her, Vanessa, or back to River Road. So that may be where that, we could stick that, and I would be in favor of putting a third Romanet that says other. Let's be visionary, let's look outside the box. Just a thought.
Can you live with that?
I can live with that. I mean, look, it's a committee thing, so.
I can live with that.
I think that's, we can address it and raise it there. I think that's a good point, a good place to put it.
But the focus should be on, in that regard, the wording is important that was highlighted, you know, the socioeconomic, non-vehicular traffic, or however you want to define it. I just think that, personally speaking, I don't know if people are in this room, 40 people, but when you say equity, you'll have 40 different definitions of that. It's, and that's not, I don't think, your point.
Yeah.
So I would agree with your recommendation, and because it's way beyond our ability to even measure those type of things. And I don't think that's an area that should be in it should remain in the political sphere.
And we're not making any judgments. We'd say in the report for those who either don't want to buy a car, don't want to maintain a car, can afford a car, here are some other options that we thought about that we think will help address their needs as well.
Yeah. And need to be mindful of those needs.
Right.
That's not exactly.
How about in 3 would be the importance of non-auto-centric transportation solutions?
Sure, I mean, that's already here, but sure. Watered down. Sure.
Well, we can just go home then.
That was an engineer that said.
Wow. Point well taken.
All right. I'm gonna consider you can declare me out of order if you want. I'm gonna consider your first motion to put it someplace as not seconded, and we'll go back to the original motion. Is this the outline? Keep in mind, this is not written in stone, but we just need something to move forward on. Anybody object to it? Any other objections?
Well, would Bitsy entertain a friendly motion to amend pedestrian to say non-vehicular infrastructure?
I would.
Okay, then I'll make that motion.
Non-vehicular infrastructure for 7C.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody object to that? Good. Right? Go. Second.
Oh, good, thank you.
Okay, 2 seconds.
Is that Bryce or Lincoln?
There's rank. All right. Any other objections? Hearing none, the report outline is adopted. Now, I'd like to spend just a few minutes before we conclude. The next page is a page of people that are participants in the process. And this is just a minute detail, but I think it's important that we give people credit for their participation here. Do you want the list of people on these committees to be the people that the committee ended with, or the people that the committee started with? Do we want to recognize, for example, Mayor Maxton and Mayor Menezes, both were members? Do we want to list both of them? I think we should. Any preference about who goes first, who goes second?
I agree that both should be, because it's very important to the early part of the
Yeah.
process.
Any thoughts? Kim, what's the protocol?
Well, I think you would list the first mayor first. I mean, the one that was in office when we started would be listed first. The one who's in office now would be listed second.
Same with committee members, for example?
Yes.
Bob Parkway, and you replaced Bob, right?
I did.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good with that. Anybody object to that?
Well, I want to, like Seth Mitchell, for example, was on our subcommittee for experts, subject matter experts.
Okay.
And that ought to be, and there's a bunch of folks around this room that have done that as well, who aren't on the formal committee. They ought to be recognized in some way too.
I agree, and part of the, I mean, I had written part of this, while those who participate as members of the committee are to be commended for their diligence, blah, blah, blah. Commendations are also due to members of the public who monitored and participated in the committee's meetings. Unfortunately, we did not take roles, but if you have a subcommittee and you know who they are, let me know who those are, and we'll be glad to give them credit here, because this really is intended to be community-based.
All right, Seth Mitchell for our subject matter experts. Thank you. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you, but.
Maybe I should have asked you first, right?
Yes.
All right. Very good, y'all made a lot of progress today. we're not gonna go over the draft sections 1 and 2, but they're there. We'll consider those at the next meeting. You can read through them, and I think you've read most of it, but you have any wordsmithing to do, Ben? Call me ahead of time, we'll work it out. That's right. I appreciate, man, I'm just
Oh,
teasing.
I got you.
I do appreciate precise wording and language and sticking to your guns. Next item is the second item for public comment. So,
It's my first meeting.
well, glad to have you here.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Seth, Wes, Tom, Ms. Pearson, Ms. Dia.
Gerhard.
Gerhard.
Janet disbanded.
Yes, ma'am. Are you watching out for him?
Yeah.
How many years
Not
ago?
responsible.
Lance? Now, Lance, I just want to correct something. I don't know where you got the impression. This is not the second to the last meeting of this committee.
I know, I know you all hadn't voted on it yet, I missed that part.
Okay.
Do we have any idea how many more meetings there are? Ballpark?
However many
More than
you
2.
do, right. There you go.
All right.
We never really talked about next steps. I guess we're still waiting on data from Northern, et cetera. Before we figure out how we're gonna take all that information, conglomerate it, sort of.
I mean, if you guys are comfortable with me doing this, I can start pushing out
I think
things for you guys to go through. Now, I don't know, that it would be easy for me to set up something where you can comment directly on it, but each project, each idea has a specific ID number. So if you've got, I can post it and scribble it down or something like that, or you can write it, just make a list. Or maybe I can find some way for you guys to comment directly, but.
How about just a clip and paste, you send an email with a clip and paste?
Something like that, yeah. So, and there, I mean, we can probably get some stuff together by next week.
We have a meeting next week.
Cecila's trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying. No, I just have a quick question. I just want to be clear about some things, because things were brought up about the direction. I feel like what Northern's doing is moving the process forward. So if she needs any help, then, I can help her for sure. But at this point, I don't, there's talk about looking at the bike information and, determining whether it's, recreational or whatever. I think Northern's moving forward with all of that. But I don't want to be duplicate, work here. So I just wanted to make sure that you all, had whatever you need from us. And if you guys need anything else, let me know. And there was, I'm not sure where to move forward with. At this point, I think I'm standing down.
I'd say if Northern needs anything, she'll call you.
All right. And we already gave her the websites for the tip and also the text project, so she's got all that.
And you're welcome anytime.
Okay.
Okay. I'm kind of hesitant.
Okay. All right, we are going to meet again a week from today, September the 7th. It may be a short meeting depending on how much work Northern got done. how much drafting I get done in the meantime. And if anybody wants to begin drafting some of these sections, let me know. And Bryce, I got some pretty, that was a nice epistle that you sent out.
Epistle?
I appreciate that. So if you have some skills like that, if you'd like to take on some of these. There are some specific suggestions that people have made or would like to make to the committee. And I think it's important that we give those suggestions a voice. Mr. Kite spent a lot of time looking at some routing, and while some of it is greenfield routing, some of it relies on developer, infrastructure. But I think as a transportation committee, we at least need to hear it and consider it. And if we don't like it, if y'all don't like it, then you'll vote it down. But it needs to be identified and vetted so that we give a full voice to the entire community. So that may be something that we add next week as well. That we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Y'all have a good Labor Day.
Oh, thank you.